I can probably give you like a real life example of what's going on in a different business than ours at the moment. And it's a government department where the a new team leader was appointed who had very poor work ethics themselves. And the small team of, I think it was around 6 at that time, there was a couple of them that weren't really good, as in, they were your typical government workers. There's such a thing. And because of her poor team leadership, it is now dwindled down into a team. So now those 4 really good employees are now slowly becoming, it's like, I can't be bothered. Why should I do it if they're not doing it? Or, why should I, come to the office when I'm meant to be in the office 2 days a week out of the 5, but she's not turning up. She's always away. And then what I've noticed with that business is the sick leave goes up. The I can't be bothered doing this phone duty, I feel sick, or it's just everything starts to fall apart. And so that's like a real life example where if you don't lead, then your team will crumble. And it doesn't matter how many or how good your team was, it creates disconnection between employees, it creates frustration, it creates tension at home as well. It just snowballs out. So yeah, I see that happening. That's a little bit sensitive, but
Welcome to the BundyPlus podcast.
welcome back to the BundyPlus podcast. And today we're going to be exploring something that's a little bit more hard hitting, and it comes around about being present. Because often when someone retires on paper, there's normally they've clocked out well before that. So today we're going to look at more closely at their attendance records, because often you'll see some late starts, late finishes, some missing punches, and often that gets reflected in HR. But end of the day, it really comes down to your leadership and how that's reflected. So today we're going to be asking some more powerful questions. Are your team's time habits shaped by your leadership habits? And I'm going to welcome Levon. Again, today is our implementation lead. He's been with us for a long time. He's seen a lot of cultures, and welcome back, Levon.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I think this one's an important topic and maybe one that gets a bit overlooked. And obviously, something that we, and with the solutions that we provide, try to, offer better solutions for these types of issues.
Excellent. And also joining us today for the very first time, I'm very excited, and that is Avon. Avon's normally behind the scenes doing a lot of the social media work. So welcome, Miss Avon.
Thank you, Sir Steve. I'm glad to be here. I spent a lot of time listening online and also in training rooms, and there's something like a pattern about the topics that keeps on coming up. Usually, employees do not mind the rules as long as they see their leaders following the same set of rules too. And when they see leaders not doing those rules, that's when employees start checking out. And then they check out quietly. So what should leaders do in order for them or for the company to avoid the downfall from coming from this situation?
Yeah, 100% agree. So let's talk about what really happens when leadership starts to cut the corners in time. Levon, what about you? What would you notice in the data?
I think, some of the trends is, with, for example, people taking extended breaks, buddy punching is obviously a classic one. People just being late, clocking in late or clocking out early. But I mean, usually it's not a matter of laziness. It's more a matter of, I guess, being disconnected, whether it's within the team or a certain relationship between that person and the leader. So essentially like a mismatch. And that, I guess, that misalignment breeds almost like a silent protest. People kind of start to get passive aggressive, or like I said, you start to see these trends of clocking in late, extending their breaks and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's really verbal. It's really quite, it's quite tricky. It's one of those subliminal things that you may notice or not notice if you're not really engaged with your team fully. Avon, your thoughts?
Well, I myself have experienced this in the past. These days it's called silent quitting. But back in my day when I was still working for a corporate company, we did not have a name for that. I just felt like I'm slowly drifting away from my job. Like, clocking in, doing the very minimum what's expected of me, not above and beyond, and just clocking out, barely talking to my office mates and all. And that happened to me because I started noticing that leaders are often strict with the rules that they implement with us employees, but you see them not following the same set of rules. Like, they arrive late, and then it's not taken against their pay. They do not get a pay cut because of their laziness or their tardiness, but employees would. And like these leaders, they would like appear, or they would clock in, not literally clocking in, but they would come to the office like mid shift and then start bossing around, and they still get full paycheck when it comes, well, during payday. And once employees notice these kinds of trends, they start questioning, what's up, right? Why am I in the right company? Because employees would definitely like to be led by someone who's also who's also keen with the rules, right? The rules are there in place for leaders, for not just employees to follow, but for leaders too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's where it kind of builds that mistrust. When you see the people who are essentially, telling you what to do or rules to follow, and then following it themselves, then I guess it kind of builds or breeds this mistrust between the employees and the powers above or leadership. And I can relate to that too. I think one of the key differences I noticed when coming away from a big kind of corporate job, I think I touched on this in the last episode, and then moving to a smaller team with what we have here. It's kind of more the sense of value. I think that plays a big part is how the employees feel valued to the team. And I guess when you have a big team or you got level 1, level 2, level 3 micromanage versus like you're in a small team of 3. When I first came and met you and Mike, Steve, and it was just like, everything, your roles become ad hoc, your opinions and input is valued more. And so, yeah, you're more likely to kind of be engaged and have that sense of trust or rapport with your employees or with your leaders.
Yeah, I have to agree 100%. And the thing that I really think it's the team. And in business, I believe is no different to sport, where if you're playing sport and you're playing in a team, you play for each other. And in business, it's the same with your clocking, and you lead by example. And like in a sports, your captain will lead and he'll drag your team and inspire your team and give good habits. If you're trying to get your team members to do this, do that, and then they see you slacking off, it's like, oh, hang on a minute, why aren't you part of the team? So I think that's where leading by example in business and time clocking is really critical, where, for me, it's a habit. I clock 20 times a day. It's like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I suppose the other thing that I do often think of is how does it differ perceptually between me being the co-founder and owner and employees? Because I've certainly been in the employee role many years ago, and timesheets were a hassle back then. Like come Friday afternoon, you're filling out timesheets. Oh, it's about that. So I can understand it from an employee's point of view, but from a business owner's point of view, it's so critical that everyone's on the same page, everyone works for each other, because it really does reflect in your bottom line as well.
Completely agree. Also, with leaders, like walking the talk, like whenever I get like one-on-ones with Steve, he would always tell me that he's like up to the T. He's following. He clocks in like more than probably 20 times a day. I was like, look at my boss, right? Look at my leader, right? He's doing something that me as an employee would like to follow through. Like it makes me question also my worth as an employee in terms of, hey, my leader is doing this, why should I not do that? Right? So it follows, it sets the example for employees, right? And and that's a good thing, because if I don't see my leader like doing the same rules that he's implementing, right, it makes me question their authority.
And their work ethic as well.
Yeah, exactly.
If I expect my team to have a good work ethic, then mine should be the same.
And
Yeah,
it's not just that. You start questioning, why is this person in the position? Was this person placed in the position because he's got connections? Or was he someone who's like me, who was keen with like following the rules, and now he's in the position, he's no longer following the rules? What happened along the way? It begs the question, what made him change? Was he
Mm.
always like that, or what made the change?
Mm.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
always some of that office politics as well that's involved. So
Mm.
Correct. Yeah.
I can probably give you like a real life example of what's going on in a different business than ours at the moment. And it's a government department where the a new team leader was appointed who had very poor work ethics themselves. And the small team of, I think it was around 6 at that time, there was a couple of them that weren't really good, as in, they were your typical government workers. There's such a thing. And because of her poor team leadership, it has now dwindled down into a team. So now those 4 really good employees are now slowly becoming, it's like, I can't be bothered. Why should I do it if they're not doing it? Or, why should I, come to the office when I'm meant to be in the office 2 days a week out of the 5, but she's not turning up. She's always
Yeah.
away. And then what I've noticed with that that business is the sick leave goes up. The I can't be bothered doing this phone duty, I feel sick, or it's just everything starts to fall apart. And so that's like a real life example where if you don't lead, then your team will crumble. And it doesn't matter how many or how good your team was, it creates disconnection between employees, it creates frustration, it creates, tension at home as well. It just snowballs out. So yeah, I see that happening. That's a little bit sensitive, but yeah, that's why it's so key.
yeah, when it gets
And
to that,
mind you,
there's a lot. Yeah, you go. Sorry, Avon.
I was just about to say that Steve said it's from a government entity.
Mm. Yeah. And it's one of those things, like, not sure whether private versus public have different rules, or there's different stigmas, or there's people that are too scared to make changes because of, HR or the office politics. But yeah, it's certainly topical, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, Avon, you've been a trainer for many years. What if you had the challenge of bringing on employees yourself? So flip it. You've now become an employer. How do you have that difficult conversation with your staff when, their times might be slipping slightly, or trying to enforce, can you just remind to clock in, clock out?
Well, I follow the 3-strike rule. I would not have that serious conversation unless, of course, I would have already informed the employee like 3 times. That's when I pull the employee out and then talk to them. You cannot just tell the employee that he's doing something wrong when you lack coaching, right? When you lack checking in with the employee first. You cannot. My point being, as an employee in the past, is I hate it when employers just give me like disciplinary actions without even letting me know first that there's something wrong. You're serving me a disciplinary action form because apparently I'm at the bottom of the totem pole, when I did not even know that I'm at the bottom of the totem pole because you did not coach me on the skills that I lack. If you did not call me out the first time, the second time, the third time, how would I know that there's something that needs fixing? So in the training room, I do that too. I make sure to let the employees know. An employee that's not, religiously clocking in or clocking out, I let them know that I have been noticing that there are misses in their clock ins and clock outs. And I ask them, like, sometimes in passing, sometimes in the coffee room, what's up? How is it going? So that they know what's coming to them. It's not gonna be a surprise to them when I pull them out and have a serious conversation with them, because like along the way, I have shown them signs that there's something that needs fixing.
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah.
bit that I think sort of hit me the most, was there wasn't that conversation, that empathy and checking first, like, are you okay? Like, is everything going
Yeah.
okay? Before
Yep.
it's like bang, strike one. It's like, oh, hang on a minute.
Yep.
Like he's just giving me a
Yep.
strike. He doesn't care about my
Yep.
cat.
Yeah. Where I came from, we were taught to look for what they call EWS, or early warning signs. And disengagement and clocking, missed clock-ins are part of the signs, like early warning signs that an employee may have already been, may have already silently quit the job or have already totally disengaged. It means that that employee could become like an attrition later on, and trainers do not like attrition. So definitely we do our best to save the employee, to ask what's going on. We we did i did try different approaches with different employees, because to each his own, right? Different employees have different characters. So I learned along the way to adjust my means and method to get the answers that I need to hear from them. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Levon, I'll ask the same question as you. So let's flip it. Let's flip roles. You're now the employer. Your personal fitness and strength business is going crazy, because I know you've got that as a side hustle. So you've now got 3 stores, or 3 warehouses that you're managing yourself. You've got a number of staff. How do you then have the same issues with monitoring their time? Because you don't do the open up, the close. Like, what would be your recommendation, being an experienced implementer as well?
Yeah, sure. I would say, look, step one, I mean, I'd like to believe I'd already have a, good understanding of this, but, just kind of looking in the mirror and making sure that, I'm doing the right things or leading by example, because, obviously, as we discussed earlier, it kind of all starts from that. So I want to make sure that I'm setting a positive example and being a good role model. And then after that, it would then be about, engaging with the team, or, if we're talking about different sites, maybe to whoever's managing or supervising those sites, those locations, and to just kind of check in to see what it is. That I think that human element is what's really important. Even when I think back to my own examples, being the employee, or when things have become, I guess, a bit toxic, or just, not so, just poor chemistries when it comes to a lot of finger pointing. And so it's like, this person's doing this, so, why should I bother? So you want to really be able to connect with your team on that, human element, even that example you mentioned earlier about, what's going on? Is everything okay? And then obviously maybe not so explicit about like a warning or a 3-strike rule, but, maybe just kind of keeping that in the back of my mind, or, letting your team know, what they expect, and that it's okay. Obviously, if they're giving you a valid reason, or now you have a better understanding of what they're going through emotionally or whatever, and then just kind of reassess from there. But I'd say, it starts with looking in the mirror, or just making sure you're setting a positive example. And then step 2 would be having that kind of open comms with your team throughout.
Yeah, 100%. Because at the end of the day too, if you don't sort of lead by example, and that good employee does leave, you then have to find a new employee to fill that same role that you'd already found the perfect employee. It's just you hadn't done them to the best of your ability, or you hadn't been checking in as often as you should. So yeah, that's probably key for me. I mean, it's kind of weird, right? We're in the technology game. We do time clocks. Everything is we record this, record that. But my biggest takeaway from this podcast is it's not really about the tech. I mean, sure, the tech is great and you have to record it because of compliance, but it really is that touching base to making sure that everyone is okay, making sure that you're clocking in, clocking out. It's a tool. Really, your attendance is a tool to make sure your business is running well. It's not just purely a time and attendance. It's time and mindset, really. Like, how is everyone traveling?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, regardless of what tech we have, right? It all boils down to the human aspect still.
Yep. Cool. All right, let's move into how do we spot the signs and making the shift. So let's talk about the actions. Like, how can a leader know the team is sort of quietly slipping away, or slowly checking out? Levon, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, some of the classic ones that we touched on earlier, like just, missed gaps in the timesheet, forgetting to clock in and clock out. And it's usually not forgetfulness. It's more so like, the sign that person's just disengaging. They're like mentally checking out, lack of attention to detail, that kind of thing. And then, for example, last minute changes, calling in sick last minute, asking for shift swaps and things like that, kind of signals avoidance, that they're trying to, reduce their presence, limit their responsibility, and avoid, certain duties and tasks. Yeah, I'd say those are some of the classic ones. Essentially, they all point to disengagement.
Avon?
My thoughts would be like, you're correct. It's rarely verbal. And even in silence, even if employees would still follow rules, we can still notice disengaged employees through, well, with employees not offering ideas, not taking initiatives, not providing feedback. These are little like telltale signs of being disengaged. They're operating on minimum engagement. And that's also, I think, is a time problem too. Because if they feel inspired, like providing feedback, taking initiative, it cuts time. Like it makes work fun, it makes work easier, right? And basically makes the whole working environment good to be in. Because when people feel inspired, they show up early, they log time with pride. And when they do not, when they do barely minimum stuff, that's when they're slipping away.
Levon, how do you think we can repair it?
Well, like we mentioned earlier, leading by example. So, I mean, if your leaders aren't, doing the same or setting a positive example, it's going to be hard to, for your or to expect your employees to behave the same way or to follow the rules. So yeah, are you essentially using the system the way that your team also expects to? Something you could say is like, I realize I haven't been following our processes as well as I should, and I'm changing that starting today. That could be, a step in the right direction for the leader to, kind of regain that trust, connect with your team as well on a human level. So there's less of this hierarchical concept of, here's the boss and the employee. Yeah. Building trust essentially.
Yeah, I 100% agree. For me, it's not so much. It's lack of communication too. Like, I love our one-on-ones, and we get to, well, I get to understand what your motivations are, where you are in your life, from week to week to week. If I didn't have that, I think you're only looking at it from purely a performance point of view or a timesheet point of view. And if I didn't have that connection, like if I saw, say, Avon, you started to get a little bit tardy with your times, and it's a little bit out of behaviour, my first reaction wouldn't be, oh, Avon's stealing time. It's no.
Yeah.
I always lead with empathy, and I'll say, Avon, is everything okay? And you might say, look, yeah, my cat is going through a bit of tough trouble at the moment. I had to give him tablets every morning or whatever. And I'll totally understand that. I'm not going to come down hard on you because you're not clocking. I'm trying to see, okay, why are you not sort of performing at what is your normal standard? So I think that communication is key. And I think you just need to, you need to know what those habits are as well. So it's not just purely a laziness thing. I mean, a laziness thing is obviously a certain component in a lot of people, and you just have to keep on it. It's like, like any habits, it takes 3 times, or whatever it is. So yeah, no, it's that communication as well, because at the end of the day, you are still building a team. You are still working as a team. You're not just working to have whatever awesome timesheets. Timesheets are a side thing, but it's that team.
Correct. And also, leaders need to reassess themselves if they are engaged as they were too when they started, right? Because if they are no longer engaged, then they would stop noticing the details that their employees are showing them, like the signs that their employees are silently quitting or their employees are no longer engaged as they were in the past, right? So when leaders themselves have started checking out, then definitely it would follow through that they would stop checking their employees and then building that communication with their employees to understand where their employees are coming from. So I think resetting the narrative coming from leadership down, right? It starts with the leadership, reassess themselves, and then probably a review of the core values of the team. And then communicating with each and every team members, understanding their motivations, you're correct, Steve, and what their current situation is. And then understanding what the company can do or what the leaders can do to help employees stay engaged with their jobs.
Let's bring it home. So if you're a leader and your team attendance just seems to be dropping off, things don't quite right, my advice is don't put in more rules. Talk to your people, talk to them one-on-one, start to listen to what their pain points are, what might be going in their lives. Just, step back a little bit and just reflect, because, timesheets don't lie, audits don't lie. And what people value the most is the connection and the value that they have at their work. And ultimately, this tells the truth about your business culture and your culture itself. Levon.
Yeah, I think that for sure. Be open with your team, communication, as you said, and don't kind of underestimate the fact that that your leadership shows up in in the small things, down to obviously even how you clock in. And it's not just a reflection of when you work. It's more about what your processes are and how you lead your team essentially.
Avon?
Just remember that people won't always say how they feel or what they feel, but they would definitely show it in how and when they show up. It's for the leaders to fix the perception that employees have of them and start questioning themselves. Am I showing up the way I want my employees to?
Yeah, that's a really great point. That's a great spot to finish off this podcast. And thank you to you both. Levon, Avon, it's been such an interesting conversation, and like me, an employer, and you employees, although I see us all as just one team, really powerful conversations. So to all our listeners, if this episode hits home, please share it, reflect on it, and use it, because walking the walk and talking the talk, two totally different things. As leaders, you need to be leading by example, because that really what sets the tone of your culture. It will also then flow down into your bottom line of your business. It'll also flow into the retention of your staff and the turnover of your staff, and just the general well-being of your staff. So that's where we're going to finish this off. Starts with you. Thank you.
Nice one. See you, everyone.
One tap, one task, no time to waste. Smarter time, stronger.